Hello, I'm back today with a romance recommendation video, and today I am talking about books that feature married couples. Now normally when we're reading romance books we are following a couple that have recently met, or maybe they've known each other for a long time and are finally starting to develop their relationship, and ultimately we're looking for that HEA at the end. Well, I've got 8 romance recommendations today that actually feature married couples. Now they're not estranged, they're not separated. In fact, most of these couples have been with each other for about a decade, but something happens in these stories where they need to rekindle their relationship, or something changes about their relationship, and we kind of get to see them continue to develop in their relationship and of course ultimately still get that HEA. I've got quite a range of romances in here, including a couple of erotic romances, a historical romance and a couple of dark romances as well. Okay, so let's get stuck straight in, and the first one I'm going to talk about is actually a novella called Denial by Ali Mah, and this is book 1 in her King Cate series. So you can probably guess from the title of that series that this one is in fact an erotic romance. This is, like I say, book 1 in this series, and there aren't any more books in this series so far, but I believe she will be writing more and they'll be coming to us soon. So this features a couple that are actually in a dom-sub relationship. In fact, it's the husband who's a submissive and the wife is a dominant, and they've been married for about a decade and they really love each other and have got a great relationship. However, the husband, who is named David, and I actually don't know the name of the wife because it's all told from her perspective, and I don't think her name is ever revealed in the book. At least I can never remember her name being mentioned, but the husband is called David, and he really wants to fully submit to his wife. He wants to express how much he actually loves her, and he's been urging her for some time to take their dom-sub relationship to the next level. And one of the things he really wants to do is for her to cage him and not tell him when she's going to take the cage off. So they've done this kind of play before, but he's always known how long he's going to have to wear the cage for, and he really truly wants to submit to her and sort of said, don't tell me how long it's going to be, how long I'm going to be in this state for, I'm going to fully submit to you. And so this story really follows them as a couple exploring this kink together, him fully submitting to her, putting his full trust in her, and also as it goes on for an extended period of time, the emotions that they both go through, and particularly him and his struggle and really kind of wanting to hold on to this sort of submission to really demonstrate how devoted he is to her, not only as his wife but as his dominant. So I thought this one was a really interesting take on the married couple, especially a couple that have been married for quite some time. Next up then, I've got King of Greed by Huang, and this is book 3 in her Kings of Sin series. Now, I haven't actually read any other books in this series, but I have read a couple of other Huang's books and I really enjoyed them, and this one really appealed to me specifically because this was a married couple. And again, this couple in here have been married for 10 years and previously have been utterly in love with each other, completely devoted to each other. And we are following Dominic and Alessandra. Now this one is kind of a billionaire romance. Dominic is a billionaire and he's actually a self-made billionaire. Now he met his wife in college, they fell in love, and he really wanted to give her the lifestyle to which he believed she absolutely deserved, and so he put his heart and soul into his business, and everything he's done for her over the last 10 years has been for her. The thing is, he's completely lost sight of what their relationship was all about, and he's become so obsessed and so focused on his business and making money to provide for her that he's started to drop the ball when it comes to their actual relationship. And things have been on the rocks for a couple of years and progressively getting worse because he spends so much time at work that he doesn't come home for meals, he forgets dates that they're supposed to go on. And Alessandra at the start of this book is really down to giving him one last chance because it's actually coming up to their 10th wedding anniversary. He's supposed to be coming home from work early and they're going to go away for the weekend to celebrate their anniversary, and of course what happens is he gets tied up in a meeting, some emergency happens at work and he doesn't come home on time, and this is absolutely the final straw for her. And when he finally does come home, it's to discover that she has in fact left him, and then she asks for a divorce. And it's at this point that this is a real wake-up call for Dominic, because he starts to realise that none of his money, his business doesn't matter, doesn't mean anything unless she is in his life. And he starts the process then to really change the way he lives, how he thinks about their relationship, how he thinks about her, and really starts the journey of groveling, because this guy grovels hard in order to get her back, because she isn't just going to take a simple apology, and she really drives a hard bargain with him and really makes him work for her forgiveness and for the opportunity to give him a second chance. So I really loved this one. And what I felt great about it was that this couple still absolutely loved each other. They were still very passionate about each other. They still had a great sex life. But what was really driving them apart was, you know, the fact that he was really neglecting her and their relationship. So I really kind of like to see how they made their way back to each other. So if you haven't read this one yet, then I'd highly recommend. Next up then, another erotic romance. It's The Man I Know by Daisy Jane, and this is a standalone, but it's actually connected to the Men of Paradise series, because we get cameo appearances on some of the characters from that other series. So this has got some BDSM elements to it. It involves a rape fantasy. So there is consensual non-consent in this one, and also some rigging going on, because he very much likes to tie her up, and is experimenting with shibari in this one as well. So again, this is another couple that have been together for about a decade. We're following Laws and Jess. So like I say, they are very happily married. They've got a great sex life, and they have 2 children. But the thing is, Laws has actually been harbouring a secret, and he very much has kind of a rape fantasy, and he very much wants to act out his fantasies with his wife. But his wife is so wonderful and he loves her so much that he could never fathom how he would treat her in any kind of aggressive or kind of dominant way, and so he's been very much hiding this fantasy from her. The thing is, very occasionally he likes to pleasure himself thinking about what he might do to her in this fantasy, and unfortunately for him, or fortunately for him, she happens to come home and walks in on him in the middle of the act. And at first she is completely horrified by what she sees and what she hears, but she does love him, and they talk it through, and he reveals to her what he's been imagining all this time. And she is a little bit taken aback at first. She's not sure how to think about this, but then when she thinks about it more, she really also then is a little bit upset that he's never come to her with this before, and she's like, you know, we're in a great relationship, why have you never told me? And in fact, this, if it's something you really want to do, then I'm prepared to explore this with you and see where it leads, and see if I enjoy it as well. And they actually end up taking a kind of a sex test, a sex preferences test, and they find out they're actually very compatible, because where he is a dominant and wants to act out, you know, these consensual non-consent scenes, she is actually a submissive and wouldn't actually mind being tied down or chased by him. And then they start to find time within their kind of relationship. They set aside time to act out these fantasies together and to explore their sexuality. So again, I really like this, how again this couple was completely solid when we started this book, very much in love, but now they're able to explore more about their sexual preferences and how they're going to take that forward in their relationship. I will say about this one though, there is an extremely awkward and embarrassing moment. It's one of those moments, I think it's probably the most awkward moment I've ever read in a book, when they're actually caught doing something they shouldn't be. And luckily for them, the person who intervenes in the scene that they're in happens to be a character from one of Daisy Jane's other series. Like I said, it's a cameo appearance from someone from the Men of Paradise series, because luckily for them, they're into something very similar, and so they don't have to explain themselves too much. Next up then, I've got another novella, and this is an historical romance called The Devil's Submission by Nicola Davidson. And this one is book 2 in the Fallen series, and it's actually, I believe there's 3 books in the series. They're all novellas, and they all kind of revolve around this kind of Victorian sort of sex club, which is called Fallen. And the main hero in this one, who is Lord Grayson Devereux, he is actually a co-owner of this sex club, and in particular he is kind of the money man, so he does all the books and all the accounts and everything like that. Now he also does have a kink, and he's recently married a Lady Eliza Devereux, and at the start of this book they're actually estranged, because although he very much was attracted to her and wanted to be with her, he was too afraid to reveal his kink to her, shall we say, and therefore has kind of like sent her off to the country and away from him so he doesn't have to be in close proximity to him. But she is not too happy about this because she is actually really attracted to him as well. She wants to get to know him better and have a sexual relationship with him. And when kind of business brings her back to London and she's back in close proximity with her husband again, they're able to kind of reconnect and they start to work things out between them, and he's able to reveal his sexual preferences to her, and she's only too happy to explore them with him. So I thought this was another interesting take on a married couple. So this is a married couple that have been married but they are estranged from each other, but how they find their way back to each other and ultimately are able to be together once more. The next two books then I'm going to recommend are from Sarah Cate, and the first one is Give Me More, which was book 3 in the Salacious Players Club. In this one we're actually following a married couple, Hunter and Isabel, and they again have been married for about 10 years. This seems to be the magic number, and once again they're very much in love with each other, have a great sexual relationship with each other. But in the course of this book they invite Hunter's best friend and also Isabel's best friend at this point, Drake, into their relationship, and it becomes an MMF relationship between the three of them. So I thought this was also another interesting kind of dynamic on how a married couple kind of develop their relationship but also invite someone else into their relationship as well and into their home. If you haven't read this one, this is also another book that's set in a kind of sex club environment called the Salacious Players Club, and Hunter, our hero in this one, is a part owner, and like I said, he's married to Isabel. Now Drake is his best friend, and he's not a co-owner of the club, but he's a kind of a builder, a contractor, and he has very much been employed by them to kind of build things in the club and kind of do all the maintenance and everything like that. So at the start of this book they actually get sent away, the three of them, to tour some other sex clubs around the country to explore what they're doing there, what their offering is, and see if they can bring any ideas back to the Salacious Players Club to kind of really develop some aspects of the club. And it's while they're on this trip that they start to really have a sexual relationship between the three of them, because before they've very much been best friends, they've spent a lot of time together, but they've never had a sexual relationship with the three of them. And this very much starts in this book because when they're at a sex club, Isabel and Drake get invited up on stage to kind of participate in a shibari demonstration, and Hunter obviously watches from the audience, and he's very turned on by watching his wife and his best friend together on stage. So then he kind of approaches them both and says, hey, that really turned me on, how about we do that again but this time in private, and I would very much like to watch Drake with my wife. And of course both Drake is very kind of skeptical, he's quite worried because Drake is actually bisexual, and he does have an interest in Hunter himself, but he's very worried how it's going to change the dynamic between them because he doesn't want this to go obviously sideways and kind of ruin their friendship. And so at first he kind of resists, and Isabel resists as well because she's worried what this will actually do to their marriage. But eventually Hunter is very persuasive, and eventually they kind of give in, and then they start this sexual relationship between them. Of course, because they're now all in the same room together, Hunter and Drake are going to get much closer together. And like I say, Drake is bisexual, but Hunter at this stage doesn't believe that he is, and therefore kind of has a kind of bi awakening, if you like, as he starts to realise he too is sexually attracted to Drake as much as his wife. And this is going to cause quite a lot of issues for Hunter because of the way he thinks about himself and his sexuality. So this is going to be a quite tough transition for Hunter. But again, I really like how Sarah Cate deals with this, how it really sets up, and how they are able to move from a very kind of monogamous marriage between Hunter and Isabel, and then, like I say, slowly invite their best friend into their relationship, and so it ends with them all together and all very much in love. On a similar note then, Sarah Cate more recently brought out The Homewrecker, which is book 2 in the Good Brothers series, and in this one we are following Briar and Caleb, who have been married, and this couple have been married for about 7 years and they already have 1 child together. And then Dean is the additional person who's going to end up in this relationship with them. So this couple, like I said, have been happily married for 7 years, they've got a child, they really do love each other, but the spark has gone from their sexual sexual relationship, and mainly because they've been trying for a second baby and they've not been able to get pregnant, and so the kind of sex that they've been having is sort of becoming quite routine and regimented and kind of on a clock, based on a timeline. And so, like I said, this sort of spark is gone from their love life. At the same time, a younger man moves into their guest house above their garage, and his name is Dean. Now, Dean is connected to some of the other characters in this book because he used to be friends with Caleb's brother, and also he now works in a sex club which Caleb's other brother now kind of like owns with his girlfriend. So Dean is actually a sex worker at this sex club. He doesn't have anywhere to stay, and so Caleb and Briar invite him to come and live, like I say, in their guest house above their garage, and so now Dean is very much in close proximity with them and their family. Now, Dean very much notices that the spark has gone from their relationship and very much wants to help them get the spark back. So he uses some techniques that he's learned in from being a sex worker to really kind of like help them reconnect on a sexual level. And Caleb and Dean also have a bit of a bet, and Dean sort of bets Caleb that he can actually turn his wife's head, and Caleb takes that bet fairly foolishly at first, because Dean is absolutely going to win, and you know, Briar is going to be very interested in Dean for sure. And so it's very interesting how this kind of dynamic starts out, where Dean is really leading their sex sessions with each other, really, like I say, to bring the spark and to introduce the spark back into their relationship. But ultimately he is going to become part of their family and part of their dynamic, and ultimately this is also going to be another MMF relationship between all three of them, and you know, their relationship is going to go from there. So next up, I have got a dark romance. In fact, I've got a trilogy for you, and that is the Frozen Fate trilogy by Pam Godwin. Now, this is a bit of a wild card to throw in here, because if you have ever heard me talk about these books, then you'll know it's a very dark romance indeed. But I thought it was an interesting take on this romance recommendation video about a married couple, because in fact, at the start of this trilogy, and the first book is The Hills of Shivers and Shadows, our heroine Frankie is married to a man called Monty, and at the start of this book she is kidnapped and taken to a remote place in Alaska by a man called Denver, and then kind of held captive there by him and his 3 sons. Now, over the course of the trilogy, we start to find out, you know, what is going on, why Frankie is there, who these people are, who is good and who is bad. There is lots and lots of intrigue, loads of twists and turns in this story, and like I say, it's very dark, so please check all the trigger warnings. But the interesting thing in here is, like I say, Frankie starts off and she is married to Monty. She goes through a very period in the first book, obviously, where she was separated from him, but also learns some truths about him. That means that she is very emotionally hurt by kind of things that she has learned and what has happened. And as we go through the course of the book and she starts to develop relationships with some of the other men in this series, she very much starts to think that her marriage to her husband Monty is very much over and has no intentions, even if she escapes from this place, of ever going back to him. However, by the time we get to this third book in the series, The Heart of Frost and Scars, once they find themselves back in civilization, as it were, and she is reconfronted by Monty, she starts to realise loads of other things have been happening and starts to learn new truths and starts to rethink what she was thinking before in terms of what he did, how much he hurt her, and whether or not she's going to be able to forgive him and go back to him in this relationship. Of course, it's not going to be the same as it was before she was kidnapped, and there are now other men in the equation in here as well. In fact, this is kind of a reverse harem, polyamorous sort of relationship between her and 3 men, but one of which is her husband. And yeah, I just really enjoyed how Pam explored not only the relationship that Frankie had with these other men in this series, but also how she kind of navigated her relationship with her husband as well. So if you haven't read this before and you're interested, then I would highly recommend. Like I say, it's a bit of a wild card, but these 2 are in fact married, and they stay married throughout, and I just wanted to share that as a recommendation for this particular video. Finally then, I have Shattered Secrets by Lilian Harris. This is a standalone, but it's a spin spin-off from her Mazzina crime family, because this is like, I would say, mafia adjacent. It's not strictly mafia, but the hero in this one, Hudson, he is actually a lawyer for the mafia family. And at the start of this book, we are introduced very much to him and his wife, Hadley. And again, this is very much a tale of two people who are desperately in love with each other. In fact, Lilian Harris does a fantastic job in the first 20% of this book, I would say, really setting the scene about how much this couple absolutely love each other. They're completely devoted to each other, you know, have a great sexual relationship and really sweet and swoony together. They've got a great friendship circle as well. The only kind of cloud on the horizon is that they desperately want a baby and they've been unable to get pregnant, or if they have, then unfortunately Hadley has lost the baby. So check your trigger warnings for that if that is a trigger for you, because it is very, very sad at the start of this book, but also very uplifting and happy because of how great their relationship is. Unfortunately then, something happens to Hudson and he goes missing and is very much presumed dead, and he disappears for about 4 years, and this is like the next sort of 30%, I would say, of this book. And Hadley really holds on to the hope that he hasn't passed away, that she really believes that he's going to come back to her. And at the same time, when he first disappears, she finally finds out that she is pregnant. So this is really bittersweet because it's what they've been waiting for, what they've been dreaming of. And now she is pregnant and she's over the moon, but also very heartbroken and devastated that he's not going to be around to enjoy the experience with her. And so then 4 years now pass where she is kind of learning to live without him and bringing up their child on her own. Still a great friendship circle around them, until one day her husband is actually found. Hudson isn't dead as she believed, but he has got amnesia, so something happened to him. We don't know what happened to him, but he has lost his memory and he is now kind of living a completely new life in a new place. In fact, he's mayor of this town. So of course, when she hears that he's alive, he's actually living under a completely different name, she goes to see him, and she's really hoping that being there and him seeing her will trigger some sort of memory that he'll remember who she is. But unfortunately he doesn't remember who she is, and it's a really, really hard struggle for them both, because he is still really drawn to her, really attracted to her. He really feels some sort of connection. He just can't remember what it was. And so again, she almost goes through this pain of heartbreak again because she's finally found him, but he doesn't remember anything about their life. But she is determined to get him back and determined to kind of rekindle their relationship, start again, really get him to fall in love with her again, and obviously come back to her and their child. So I really, really liked how this one was sort of set up. There's great intrigue and mystery as well, because we've got a mystery to unravel in terms of what happened to him, how he came to lose his memory and why he ended up where he ended up. So there's a great, like I say, level of intrigue around that story as well. But I thought the romance was absolutely fantastic, and I really liked some of the choices that Lilian Harris made in this book as well. So there you go, that is my romance recommendation video for married couples. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content from me, and if you've got any recommendations similar to these and want to share them, please don't hesitate to pop those down in the comments box below. So all that's left for me to do is thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Which was book 3 in the Soleil, and she's more than happy. She's own. Next up then, I've got King of Greed by Anna Huang. Haha. It's probably going to drive me mad actually. Let's change my hair. Right, after faffing around,